morning, my friends. I don't normally give titles to sermons that I write or to the messages that we're doing now, but every once in a while one comes to me and kind of gives me a way of focusing my thoughts and might actually be the takeaway. As my friend Father Chris is fond of saying, all the sermons need to have a takeaway. So here's the title and the takeaway of this message. With apologies to Hunter S. Thompson, this is titled, Fear and Coping in Las Vegas. Let's unpack those. Let's start with fear. I don't think anyone would argue with the idea that we are living in fearsome times. Fear has been a constant companion for us throughout the time of this pandemic. And yet, I'm noticing that fear is starting to change. At the beginning, we sort of had this we're all in it together kind of mentality. We were all afraid, make no mistake, we were all in fear, but we were all in fear of the very same thing. That is, that we might contract the virus. And so we had this shared experience. It didn't matter who you were or what you were. This virus was sort of the great leveler because it affected all of us. Not just all of us here in Las Vegas or all of us here in the United States, but all of us around the world. And so fear was something that we shared. It was an experience that kind of brought us together. And yet, as our time living with fear has gone on, that fear has somewhat morphed. For some people, it has changed. And we've moved from that initial fear in a way that only humans can to find new things to be afraid of. The new one seems to be, are we taking the virus too seriously, or are we opening the country too soon? That's a real conversation right now, and well, frankly, conversation's the wrong word for it. That's a real argument that's going on right now. And there are people on both sides of that dynamic. And yet, what that has done is that new fear of, are we staying closed too long or are we opening too soon? That is the new fear. And rather than unite us, that fear is dividing us. Last week I talked about some of the online traffic that I see on my Facebook feed. I have people on both sides of the aisle and their posts all pop on there, and we talk together about the idea of making certain that malice was not part of our conversation. I am sad to say that malice has returned. I see a whole lot of Facebook posts, a whole lot of social media traffic, and that makes sense. That's the primary means we have to communicate with one another right now. But in people's zeal to protect themselves from their fears, I'm seeing that malice coming back full force. I saw a post from someone. Now, mind you, the person didn't say this, but they shared this post. Someone saying, I hope so-and-so catches the virus and dies from it. Oh, my brothers and sisters, that's not the gospel message. That's not who we are. That's fear talking. That's fear allowing us to put aside our humanity, to put aside our faith. And those are the two things that we need most of all. Don't let fear divide us. Don't let it control you. And most especially, don't let it remove your faith. For nowhere in the gospel are we told we should wish death on other people. That's not how this works. You know that. I know that. We don't need to spend a lot of time on that. We also know that that's fear. And that fear is overwhelming, but don't let that malice creep into your heart. Yes, disagree with one another. Of course, that's how we work as a civilized society. We can have valid disagreements, but don't let fear discourage us from being the people that we want to be, that God enables us to be. Okay, that's the fear component. Let's move to coping. Because remember, the takeaway is fear and coping in Las Vegas, right? How then do we cope? Well, there's a lot of ways that we're coping with this. One of the blessings and also challenges of pastoring a congregation like this is we all talk to a whole lot of people, and I hear a lot from a lot of different folks. Now, I know some of you are coping in healthy ways, and some of you are coping in not so healthy ways. It's 9:05 in the morning, and if you've already had a big piece of cheesecake and you're washing it down with your favorite adult beverage, let me just suggest those may not be healthy coping skills. But even if that's what you're doing, don't beat yourself up. Be kinder to yourself. That's one of the challenges we have right now. That fear, yeah, I'm not done with fear. I just put it off to the side because we're not done with fear. It's always there, isn't it? It sits just off of our shoulder and it just waits to pounce on us. So even in our coping, we have to acknowledge that fear that's there. And so if a piece of cheesecake for breakfast helps you deal with that fear, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up for it, but don't let that fear control all your actions. Look for healthier ways to cope. What do I mean by that? Well, it's not necessarily all about diet and all that wonderful stuff. Those are great, don't get me wrong, but find ways that help you cope that don't allow malice against other people and don't harm you physically, emotionally, or spiritually. I hear from people that they're out walking. I talked with folks yesterday. One person was saying, I'm walking 3 miles a day, and someone else is walking 5 miles. Someone else is walking 7 miles a day. Wonderful. That's a great benefit to this. Use this time to read more. Use this time to catch up with other people more. That's a wonderful blessing. Here's something else I think that would be a great coping tool for you. And I'm going to take this very same advice. When this message is over, turn off your phone. Yes, I said it. Turn off your phone, put down your tablet, walk away from the computer, because one of the things that's helping us swim in this sea of fear is the constant messaging that we're getting. Stop watching CNN, stop watching Fox, whichever one is your particular brand. Get away from it all. Give yourself permission to rest. For that is one of the best coping mechanisms, my friends. Let yourself have some time to just be. Be with yourself. Be with God. Be the people that you know you can be. Let yourself be a little bit afraid, but don't let that fear overwhelm you. Don't let it change who you are, and don't let it change your relationship with God. Fear and coping in Las Vegas, the two are possible. Fear is always going to be with you, but don't let it overwhelm you. Use those coping mechanisms to continue to be God's people. And may God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit bless you, be with you, and help you through that fear this day and always. Amen.